Hi. What's up, 1500 ESPN fans and Twins fans? I don't know. I'm Derek Wetmore. I'm the editor of 1500ESPN.com. I also cover the Twins for the website, radio station, podcasts, everything we do here at 1500 ESPN. I'm going to just open this up. I'll let as many people file in here as they want to. Whoever's got a question, let me know. I will get to some Twin stuff here. I got a couple of new columns that I wrote this week that I guess we can talk about. If you guys don't have any questions, I'll just keep filibustering with that stuff. But if you give me one quick second, I'm just going to tweet out this link so that we can get our Twitter friends involved too. Because right now I think it's only our Facebook friends. Probably want to have both audiences. One of the things that I wrote, I guess as we're going, oh, that's weird. I can see myself on the screen. I don't like that so much. One of the things that I wrote this week that is probably going to come up here, I'm guessing, so I'll just head you off at the pass. My 25-man roster projection. It's out. It's finally here. I've been waiting a long time for this. I have some fun with that post every year. It never turns out to be 100% correct, but what it does is it opens up some fun and interesting conversations. I'll get right into one of the ones that I think will spark some questions. If I leave Jose Berrios out of my starting rotation when I project a 25-man roster, does it mean that he's not going to make the opening day rotation? No, but it's my current guess as we sit here today. It's January 17th as I look at my computer calendar, and hey, it's what I think right now, and it allows us to talk about it. It opens up sort of a vessel for discussion about Jose Berrios and how I don't think he's one of the 5 most ready pitchers. It's amazing to say it like that because, truthfully, I do believe that he'll be one of the most impactful pitchers for the Twins this year. But the concerns that I saw last year that we haven't seen. He hasn't proven that he's moved past him. It's simple. It's fastball command. The fact that he couldn't throw a strike exactly when he needed to was concerning. I think it's something you see a lot of top prospects able to do. And some people inevitably contend. I already know I'm going to get the question. In fact, I'm going to open up Facebook on my computer so I can make sure that I see all your questions. Unfortunately, I've missed a few in weeks past. I'll try to get to every single one today. Leave your question below. I see Devlin's already got a question in here. I'll get to all of them that I see, and we'll go from there. But the question that I know I'm going to get is, Derek, Berrios dominated in the minor leagues. What more does he need to show you to honestly prove that he belongs in the starting rotation? I've seen his minor league numbers too. I know that he was an ace for the Rochester Red Wings. I know he strikes out everybody and their teammate. He's been incredibly impressive in the minor leagues, especially his sort of late run-up as his minor league numbers look to be asking the Twins, what more do I need to show you to prove that I belong in the rotation? I know all of that stuff. I'm not overlooking his minor league dominance, trust me. I just question, with the fastball command, is he the type of pitcher that was able to dominate even in the high minors just because he runs his fastball up into the mid to upper 90s? He has a two-seamer that moves across the whole plate when he wants it to, and he throws a good breaking ball and I think an exceptional changeup. All of those things should lead to major league success eventually, so I'm not writing Berrios off with this projection. What I am saying is that you need to have fastball command to make it at this level. I'd like to see that from Berrios before I write his name in pen in the starting rotation. I can get to my starting rotation if you guys are curious. We can also talk about the Brian Dozier column that I wrote, wrapping up his incredible 2016 season, the Joe Mauer, anything that I've written in the past 6 months. I don't want to put a timeline on it. It's all fair game. Ask me about any of it. I'm perfectly fine to defend any of those opinions. If you disagree with anything, I would love to hear it. I think I don't get offended personally. I think it sparks good conversation. So anyways, with all that being said, let us start to jump into some of the questions. It looks like Devlin is bogarting the comment section right now. So thank you for the questions, Devlin. I'll get to them here. If anybody else has some, drop them in. Derek, what are your thoughts on Byung-ho Park's second season? He played okay with a partially injured wrist. Twins fans are crazy who think they should give up on him, eh? Yes, I think it would be crazy to give up on him. but I don't know how much the wrist impacted his performance last year. There were very real concerns about Park's performance at the plate. Look, he was impressive early on, despite the fact that he was adjusting to a new league. He hit a lot of home runs. He was even being talked about, including by me, mistakenly, as a potential American League Rookie of the Year candidate. Obviously, that didn't pan out. His final numbers looked terrible, and he didn't perform exceptionally well in Rochester. He hit a lot of home runs, so I'm not trying to take that away from him. But the overall season left you wanting more if you're the Twins. My thoughts on his second season, I think it remains to be seen. It's a work in progress for Byung-Ho Park. I didn't put him on my opening day roster projection. Frankly, I think Kenny Vargas had a more impressive 2016 season, and I would roll with him at DH with the current 40-man roster before I would roll with Byung-Ho Park. Byung-Ho Park does have options in his contract. He could send him to the minor leagues, for no penalty, no harm, no foul. I still see promise, of course. I mean, the home runs when he hit them were exceptional. It seemed to me anyways, anecdotally, like he could handle the breaking stuff. Hard sliders maybe gave him a little bit more trouble than I expected. But the real concerning thing that I alluded to a minute ago, Devlin, is the fastball. If he can't hit 95, how often do you trust him to start at designated hitter? You get some pitchers, especially late in games, that can really run it up there. How valuable is that if you can't trust a guy to turn around high velocity fastball? I don't know that to be true, and like you mentioned in your question, Devlin, totally possible that the wrist, just the injured wrist for Byung-Ho Park could have been a significant factor for him. I've been led to believe that's not true. That's maybe getting oversold a little bit. That, yeah, he had wrist problems, but you can't pin all his struggles on that. Take that for what it's worth. I'm not saying that none of it had to do with his wrist, and I'm not saying that that would be the only reason that he struggled. Maybe he had a wrist injury, and he struggled with velocity, and he struggled with the transition. But I don't think we've quite seen from Byung-Ho Park what we saw with the Pirates from Jung-Ho Gong the year before that. I think Gong's been, frankly, more impressive at the plate, and when you're playing, second base, shortstop, third base, it just doesn't take as much to be valuable to a team offensively as it does for Park, who's basically a DH passing as a first baseman every once in a while. I'll be curious to see how they split time at first base with Joe Mauer, because I don't think he's going to be an everyday player this year. Who gets those at-bats when Mauer's not in the lineup? Is it Park? Is it Kenny Vargas? Is it Miguel Sano? Is it somebody else who's not currently on the roster? I don't know. But curious to see on Park. I have not given up on him. You're right. It'd be crazy to do so in year 2 of a 4-year contract. But not good early returns. I think that's stating the obvious. I'll get back to your questions, Devlin, but let me get to Alan. Thank you for the question, by the way. Okay, Alan asks, I'll read it from my computer, see if that's any easier. With the coaching changes that have been made so far throughout the system, what are your thoughts? Better? More or less status quo? Well, there remains to be seen. I don't know. I don't want to make too much of a judgment on the minor league movements. I'm curious what the Doug Minkiewicz move means. Maybe it could be as simple as they just want him with some younger players and having a hand on their development. I think there have been a number of players who've come up in the past couple of seasons, past 2 seasons specifically, who've given Minkiewicz credit for sort of their preparation to become major leaguers. I'll also say we haven't exactly seen finished products surface at the major leagues very often at Target Field the past couple of seasons. I asked Paul Molitor about that last year. I was kind of curious about this very thing, and pardon the tangent, but I hope it helps answer your question, Alan. As I said, how are you feeling about player development? How do you feel about some of the young players who you've counted on the past 2 seasons and who've come up with mixed results? I think mixed bags may be the fairest way that you can put it. And Molitor said, no, nothing wrong with our player development. I almost expected that he might say, well, we'll have to assess it, or maybe he'd give a political answer, and that's fine, of, well, we're always looking for ways to improve, and coaching preparation at the lower levels would be no different. he didn't say that. Molitor was very supportive of the people working in the minor leagues in the Twins system. He said, I trust our development process. I trust the pipeline. The players, I think these are my words, not Molitor's, but I think some of the players haven't quite been ready. But you also have to go back and look at the fact that they're coming up at 22 years old, right? We're spoiled in modern day Major League Baseball that a 22-year-old can come up and dominate. You can see Carlos Correa or Francisco Lindor, Seager in Los Angeles. Hey, you see these kids come up, Manny Machado in Baltimore, and just dominate. And it's awesome. Bryce Harper in Washington. It's great for baseball. But it's maybe skewed our perception of how quickly can top prospects realistically be expected to impact things. I'm not avoiding the question, Alan. I think in the minor leagues, my personal opinion is we haven't seen players always ready to go, but maybe I'm putting too much weight into that. Molitor sure gave a vote of confidence last season for the minor league pipeline. In the major leagues, on the coaching staff, I don't know. It's too early to say what kind of impact some of these coaches will have. The most curious James Rowson is Rowson? I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I'll get back to you. I think it's Rowson. The guy who came over from the Yankees. He was the Yankees minor league hitting coordinator. He's now replaced Tom Brunansky as Twins hitting coach. I'm curious to see what his approach to teaching young hitters is. How is he going to work with Byron Buxton? How is he going to work with Miguel Sano? I'm really curious to see the impact there, but I don't know much about him other than what I've read. And I talked to him on a conference call, but how much can you learn there? The other one that I'm really, really curious about, not to leave other people off this list, but Jeff Pickler, who's coming over from the Dodgers, got a scouting background, but he also has sort of an analytical mind to him. He's going to be in that quality control role. The Twins aren't using that term, but a lot of people I've talked with use that term as just sort of catch-all. Hey, here's a coach who's going to help with whether it's game planning or strategy or pitchers meetings or anything, whatever. I don't know what Pickler's going to do yet, but he's maybe the person on the staff that I'm most curious about what he'll do for the Twins. So to answer your question, Alan, is it better or worse than last year? I don't know. But they've made some moves, and the Twins duo running the front office seem to think that it will be better. Otherwise you don't make the moves, right? I don't think you just make change for change's sake. You have to make it thoughtfully, you have to make it methodically, and you have to do it with an eye toward a better future. And the Twins, at least from what they're saying, have done that on coaching staff. I don't know how to answer your question better than that, but I'm curious to see, specifically on the major league side of things, how the new coaching dynamic shakes out. Let's get to some other questions. Thank you, Alan. I'm giving you a thumbs up for that question. It's a good one. Devlin asks, would you make Ryan Presley the closer if Kinsler gets hurt? Don't forget about Glenn Perkins. I'd start the year with Glenn Perkins as the closer. If he's not ready to go on opening day, I think Kinsler would be the choice. I think that Paul Molitor has shown a tendency in the past to trust veterans. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I think you can get yourself in a little hot water if you trust veterans a little bit too much. You see it across all sports. Sometimes a young player, frankly, is just more ready to perform than his veteran counterpart who's been there before. But Molitor knows much more about that stuff than I do, so I'm not pretending to get inside his head or say this is right, this is wrong. I just think that based on Molitor's track record, the 2 years we've seen him as a manager, he will probably roll with Kinsler if Perkins isn't ready to go, and if they don't make any other moves. I should note that, because in my 25-man roster projection, I got a text notification. I don't know if you guys can hear that on the video. On my 25-man roster projection, I just put Perkins as the closer and rolled with it. I also said it's hard to know exactly who'd be next in line, but Kinsler maybe, Presley maybe, Trevor May maybe, if he's not in the starting rotation, which is where I would put him. I also signed a veteran free agent reliever. Hey, surprise! I made a roster move that the Twins haven't done. I just picked who I think might be the best free agent reliever out there, Joe Blanton. Had a couple good years out of the bullpen with the Dodgers. Yes, that Joe Blanton, the same guy who was a starting pitcher for years and years and years. He's now sort of reinvented himself as a reliever, and he's done quite well the past 2 years. He's a free agent as of this Facebook Live video, unless something has broken on Twitter. I turned Twitter off for this video so I don't get distracted by the flood of information. Sorry if he signed in the last 15 or 20 minutes, but I picked Joe Blanton just kind of solidify that bullpen for the Twins a little bit. I don't know who the fallback option would be, but the guys that I mentioned would probably be where I'd start. You can maybe look to other people for the future, potentially, but I'm not sure there's other people that I would trust right now to be the closer on opening day for the Twins. Your JT Chagwas, your Nick Birdies, Tyler J if he's a reliever in the future, whatever. There are a number of guys who have closer potential at some point, but not quite yet. I would, if I was the Twins, I would hope Perkins is healthy. Good question, Devlin. Thank you for asking. Let's get somewhere else. How about Hal? Hal asks, MLB draft thoughts. I've been getting a lot of these. Is Hunter Green the guy? Is this front office geared towards college kids who could develop quicker? I'm going to be honest, I have no idea. I don't scout high school players. I don't scout college players. I can only go off what I read and from what I hear from people. Hunter Green certainly is the guy that is being talked about right now as 1-1, as they say in the business. First round, first overall pick. The Twins interestingly made a change at their scouting director position. Darren Johnson was elevated to sort of like an advisory role. And Sean Johnson, who was running things on the West Coast, is now their scouting director. I talked to Sean Johnson at the Witter meetings in D.C., and my takeaway from him, I wrote about this on my Facebook page. If you want to go search for that, guys, Hal, if you're curious. My Facebook, by the way, is just Derek Wetmore MLB. You can find my page there. Plenty of Twins talk on that page. But my assessment was that I don't know. I have no idea how to rank Sean Johnson as a scouting director or even his work on the West Coast, but I know that he comes with high marks. I know GM Thad Levine said he's never had a promotion more universally approved from colleagues and peers and stuff like that as when he promoted Sean Johnson as scouting director. And I also know that in talking with him for 20 minutes, sharp guy. Take all that for what it's worth, because I'm not saying it's going to be great. I don't know. It's too early to know. I don't even think the Twins would know. But it seems to me their hiring process was intelligent and that they found a guy who's very well respected. But being a bright guy doesn't necessarily always mean success. Who knows? I mean, I thought David Kahn was a really bright guy, and we all know how his tenure ended as GM of the Wolves. Being smart doesn't mean you're going to be a great executive, scouting director, coach, whatever. But the early signs are positive. Is Hunter Green the guy? Way too early to say, but that's what draft nicks are saying right now. We'll see. But frankly, Hal, not really turning my attention to the June draft just yet. More curious about spring training and where the roster is at the beginning of the season for the Twins. So maybe circle back in a couple of months with that one as they get more into the season. As for are they going to scout college or high school kids, I have no idea. I'm not even going to venture a guess at that just yet. But thank you for the question. Boy, I'm being very liberal with my thumbs up today on liking these comments. But thank you. Keep them coming. I'll answer as many of these as I possibly can. Where else are we at? Let us see. Just answered Hal. How about Adam? Adam asks, if free agency isn't the way to go this year, how did the Twins improve their pitching staff in 2017 if the Dozier trade never materializes? Great question. Problem 1A for the Twins, they can't pitch. Or 2016 Twins, they couldn't pitch. Tied into that, I think, was their catching. And also tied into that was their horrendous defense that does not get talked about enough. The Twins need to improve defensively. Their pitching staff will get a little bit better. So that's one way. The Twins also could get a bump in that regard from Jason Castro. Jason Castro, all you're reading about him, right, is the pitch framing. My personal opinion, I tend to think that stuff gets overblown a little bit. I don't think that you just add 15 wins to the roster because a guy can do this and make it look like a strike, 10 times a week or 20 times a week, whatever it is. Yes, it's going to help. I'm not trying to say pitch framing doesn't exist, and as long as there's human error in the strike ball calling process, and there is, Home plate umpires aren't perfect. As long as that's the case, pitch framing will matter. But I think the thing that the Twins have talked about more, and we've got to take them at their word for it right now, is that Castro's abilities stretch beyond that he's a good leader, he game plans well, he's a very good game caller. That should help Twins pitching. And frankly, let's not ignore the fact that he throws out runners at about a league average rate. Whereas Kurt Suzuki, and I like him, and I actually personally thought that he was good in the leadership area, thought that he was good in game calling, but that's just my amateur opinion. Say all the good things you want about Kurt Suzuki, he's probably a better bat than Jason Castro. Kurt Suzuki was terrible at throwing out runners. Whether that was his fault or the fault of the pitching staff, I can't say for sure, but I do know that the Twins will need to be better at throwing out runners. That should help their pitching staff. So there's a couple of things, Adam, that even if they don't sign somebody new, that I think could help them. Better catching, better defense, better control of the running game, and then you're just kind of hoping for guys to bounce back. You want a better year out of Kyle Gibson. What is Tyler Duffy going to bring this year? How about Berrios? You're expecting more out of Berrios? This would be a good time for him to show it. That'd help the pitching staff. Phil Hughes, really the only guy that I don't think you're expecting more out of in 2017 would be Irvin Santana. If he can give you the same thing, perfect. You take that and run with it every day. He's probably your opening day starter. After that, pitching staff's a lot of question marks, problematically. But there's just a couple of ideas of how to fix the pitching staff without actually spending money on the pitching staff. Sounds kind of weird. But, hey, if you can go get another pitcher, if you sign a Jason Hamill, if you sign a Joe Blanton, all right. Now your pitching staff just got better too. There's nobody preventing you from spending money if you're the Twins. Let's see. Answered these questions. Let's get to James. How long do you give the Twins to hold on to Buxton and Sano before they trade them? What? Where is that coming from? Why would you trade Buxton and Sano? I think that the Twins are just doing the savvy thing every time I ask. I think I've asked twice now, maybe a little unfair of me, but I asked two different executives. Is there anybody that's untouchable right now? Is there somebody who teams would call and say, hey, we're kind of curious in fill in the blank, and you'd say, thanks but no thanks, we're hanging up the phone. And Falvey, who's the number one guy who matters to ask that question to, has said, no, we don't have any untouchables. With where we're at, we have to consider all possibilities to improve the team. Good for him. I think that's what you should probably do, but it would take an awful lot to move from Buxton and Sano. I don't know where that speculation is coming from, James, but I don't know, give them a year, right? Let's see. Oh, James, you got another follow-up. You said they've given up on prospects before. What's holding the team to keep them? On Buxton and Sano? They haven't had prospects like Buxton and Sano in quite some time. I think these are their two best prospects since Joe Mauer. That's high praise, obviously, but these two guys, based on what I've seen, based on what I've read, and based on the scouts that I've talked to, warrant that sort of praise. This early into their major league tenure, how old are Buxton and Sano? 22 and 23, respectively. Way too soon to give up on them. I think Buxton could be a potential superstar. I think Sano's on track to be that guy as well. Two good guys to build around. I don't think I'd be in the business of giving them up if I was the Twins. Devlin again. Twins obviously won't trade Dozier straight up for DeLeon. Not so fast. But that's your opinion. If you were the Twins, would you put Irvin Santana in the trade and then ask for DeLeon, Bellinger, etc.? Or DeLeon, Alvarez, and prospects? I love Alvarez. I love Bellinger more. But if I'm the Dodgers, I'm not giving up more than DeLeon in terms of top-end prospects. I'll give you DeLeon and some table scraps. Sure, fine. But if I'm the Dodgers, I see not only a window to win a World Series this year, I see a super team on the horizon, and I see other super teams a lot around the league really loading up. The Cubs, how about the Yankees are going to be pretty good. I'm trying to think of some of the other teams that have just really flex their muscles. And if you're the Dodgers, you want to be in that arms race. The arms race of developing star players to go with your Seagers, to go with your Urias, to go with your Clayton Kershaw. I don't think that, like my colleague Phil Mackey, and we'll talk about this on the Touch 'Em All podcast. We've talked about this multiple episodes, so I hope I'm not misrepresenting what Mackey says here. But he basically says if you're the Dodgers, I'm paraphrasing, you can afford to lose a trade right now because you've got so many top-end prospects and you need that second baseman. I disagree. I don't think I need a second baseman this year to win the NL West, to potentially win the World Series, as badly as I want 6 years of those top-end prospects. Will some of them flame out? Yes, that's how prospects work. A certain percentage of them aren't going to become star players. Fine. I'm willing to take that risk if I'm the Dodgers. I would load up on those lottery tickets before I would pull the trigger on a Dozier deal. That's just my opinion. You got to look at it from both sides. I don't think you can look at it from the Twins' perspective with Twins-colored glasses and say, yes, we'll give up our best player, and you'd better give us the moon and the stars for it. I think I might, if I'm the Twins, I might be tempted to just take the moon. Where else we got here? Adam answered that question. I thought there was one that I hadn't answered yet. I'm not seeing it on my cell phone here. Sorry, bear with me as I try to read through these questions quickly. That might be it. I'll check my computer. I'll refresh this real quick. I will, as I look for this. That's weird. Now I see myself on the laptop. I hate that. I should just block that out. If there are no other questions, I'm going to wrap it up and just say that if you're looking for more Twins talk, do check out the Touch 'Em All podcast. We have a lot of fun on that every week. I know I'm going to post another episode today. There might be another bonus episode coming later this week as well. The last plug that I'll give is to check out my email list. I've got the link on my Facebook page. My Facebook page is Derek Wetmore MLB, or the link I think is also on my Twitter page. That's just at Derek Wetmore on Twitter. My email list is where I send all my insider stuff. It's the Baseball Insider. I think there's 850 people on that list right now, so thank you to everyone who's signed up for that. It's been a ton of fun so far. I get a lot of feedback. If I send out a column on Twitter, I might hear from 2 or 3 people. Facebook, I might hear from 5 or 10 people, and that's been great. I love the Facebook interaction. My email list, I think I cherish more. I hear from people who, they'll criticize me sometimes, and that's fine, but they'll say, I totally agree, totally disagree with that. That's been a lot of fun for me. I send all my analysis columns, so if you're just looking for the news, that might be a better place to check 1500ESPN.com. But if you're looking for my analysis, the Twins stuff, it gets a little stat geeky sometimes. But that's where I send all of those columns. You'll never miss a column. You don't have to constantly be refreshing your 1500ESPN.com browser, even though I'm sure it's your homepage if you're on this video. The email list is where I want to kind of direct all Twins fans because that's where we have a good community kind of building there. I'd like to get that number up. Get more people on that list as we approach spring training. Head to Fort Myers February 12th for pitchers and catchers reporting on the 13th. That'll do it for this video. Thank you, everybody, for all of your questions. If I missed any, I'll make sure to go comment on them and answer them in the follow-up. But thank you for joining this video. I'll see you later, maybe on the Touch 'Em All podcast.